So now the recording has started. So you can open it tomorrow and come back to the video, or you can just remember or take notes. So just open what you need to tonight. Of course, drink responsibly. Also, we want to see you guys. And so if you could please put some pictures on social media of what you're doing, if you're enjoying the outside tonight, if you're enjoying something with family and friends, take a picture and hashtag it Akron Fund Tasting. All right. And so I'm going to paste that in the chat right now, Akron Fund Tasting. So I'd like to take a minute and acknowledge our panelists here tonight. So we have Kyle from Lock 15 Brewing Company. When his turn comes to talk about his beer, he can introduce himself a little bit more, tell how he got into brewing. We have Mark from Missing Falls. We have Joey from Akronym. And I don't know how many people have been in 83, but Chris doesn't look like he's in the 83 brewery right now, but we'll find out more about that.
I am not.
And Rick, why don't you introduce yourself for a moment, and we'll get on to beer tasting.
Sure. Well, my name's Rick Armon. Right now, I'm the managing editor at the Canton Repository, but a lot of people know me for writing about beer. And for about 15 years, I worked at the Akron Beacon Journal. And for about 10 of those, and I'm still doing it, wrote a daily beer blog. And the blog is still going on, even though I'm not there at the paper. I still update it when I find the time. And I've been writing about beer since the late 90s. I find it fascinating. And I love asking questions about it. And I've also written a couple of books about Ohio brewing. And I've been to all these breweries.
Great, thank you, Rick. So first up tonight is going to be Akronym Brewery. And who's up for Akronym? Joey, why don't you talk a little bit about the history of beer, what beer is, and what you have for us to taste tonight.
Yeah, so our beer that you're getting from us is the Czech 123. This is a traditional Czech Pilsner. Thing about beer, it's one of the oldest recorded recipes in the world. The Egyptians first logged the brewing process about 5000 BC. Just like every great thing, as beer got better and bigger, it spread across into Europe. When it got to Europe, the Europeans were like, man, we have all these hops. We have all this barley. We can make beer. We can make good beer. And it was valued in Europe not only for its nutritional value, but also an alternate for water, because there wasn't very good drinking water in Europe then. So around the 1100s, German monks started pitching wild flowers or wild hops into their beer to produce more flavor. In 1516, the purity law happens where it says, beer is supposed to be hops, malts, and water. Later on they find out you kind of need yeast. And so from that, they're making these German beers, they're ales, they're big. And in 1840, a guy from Belvarian goes down to Bohemian Kingdom, which is now Czechoslovakia, and he decided to start a brewery. And 2 years later, he comes out with the first Pilsner, the first clear beer, the Czechoslovakian Pilsner. Nice clear color. Didn't have this before. All the beers were murky. This was the first clear beer that anyone made, and it just spread like wildfire throughout the kingdom. And now, 250 years later, we're still drinking it, we're still making it, and it's still following all the laws. Our Pilsner has pretty much got that nice cracker like malt flavor, nice floral aroma up front, easy drinking. Budweiser these are beers that they stole the style from. They found out, you can take 6-row malt and cut it with corn, and it's going to kind of be like European malts. And yeah, just nice, heady, foamy, delicious beer.
Joey, who came up with the name Check 1 2 3 1 2 Check 1 2 3? I love the name.
So we were trying to figure out a name for the beer. We've got a lot of good minds here, younger, older, and we just had one of our girl bartenders. We were thinking about it, and she was like, check, like microphone check, and that's pretty much what it came like. Check 1 2 3, check 1 2 3. It's like, hey, scream it out, let people know we got this delicious, easy drinking beer. This beer is a great beer to introduce people into craft beer because it's not overly malted, it's not overly hot, but it's going to have all those notes and all those just beautiful mouthfeel. And it's just a really good transition beer to get people into craft beer. And,
Well, I mean, you guys are selling everything from like a Czech Pils to, oak age stuff to fruited to sour to barley wine to, you name it. Where does the Czech Pils fall in terms of sales?
The Czech Pils is one of our better sellers. We have another lager on that does really good, Kernel of Truth, but it's a close in the top 5 beers that we're selling just because it's an easy drinker. It's the second time we brewed this beer, so obviously it sold well, and it's probably going to be one of our mainstays. And it's just it's just like for a brewer, it's one of those classic styles. If you can hammer home a good Pilsner and make a good Pilsner, then you're honing your craft in. And it seems like an easy beer to make, but it's not. And for us, it's just our brewer just loves the experience. He loves the challenge. And when he makes something good, we're gonna continue to recreate it. And that's what we've done with this beer.
Well, maybe you can explain for folks too who are unfamiliar with the process, where you said it's not an easy beer to make, about how lighter styles are more difficult to produce.
Yeah, so I've done a little bit of brewing here. I'm not the wizard like these other guys that are going to be on the panel. I just know that we have to. He goes through a lot of process where he has to pull mash out and reduce it and then put it back in, and that's just like a classic style that the Pilsners do. For him, I don't know why it's harder, but I just know that it's just a tough process because you got to keep your balance right, and the cooling it down, and the lagering process, keeping it cold, and just taking and letting it sit months so that it can get the clarity that you want it. So it's not only is it hard, it's time. It's a lot of time and space that we use up to get a good lager.
Right. Well, I mean, I think the other brewers on here would agree that it's more difficult to make something lighter because you can't hide any flaws. It's a little bit easier to hide a flaw in a, stout or something heavy than in a true Pils. So the other thing is I was sharing, the acronym, showing a friend of mine from Washington, D.C., the acronym name. And he thought it was great. He said, I hope that brewery is located in Akron because it would make sense for that name. Do you know the background of like how the story behind the name acronym?
The guys got together and, you're just thinking about something, and, acronyms are a big thing that are going on with the text messaging and the emailing and things like that. So I think it was just something that just kind of came into their mind. And then like, once you spell it the way we spell it, it just all makes sense.
So when you're walking into the brewery, what beer do you reach for and why?
I'm a hophead mostly, but I reach everywhere. Right now we've got a good double New England on that I really like, nice and juicy, forward, good carbonation, a little higher in alcohol content, but just pouring pretty, tasting pretty. I'm usually gonna go for something hoppy. In warm days, the Pilsner's good, but we've got a nice key lime sour right now. It's a Goza Sublime Goes. So nice little easy drinker there too. So probably either a big IPA or something light and fruity.
Do you, I don't know how old you are. You remember the first beer you ever had?
Yes, Jenny Cream Ale. My dad was a Jenny Creamer drinker, and I used to take some beers out of the fridge and go play golf at Good Park Golf Course and crack me a couple Jennies.
And do you still, I actually think Jenny Cream Ale is a decent cream ale. You still have
Yeah,
it?
I mean, I revisit it for, for fun, but I really try to support the local guys, the local breweries. I try to give back to the community. I don't really try to venture out too much to the big brands. I like to keep it small, keep it local. But yeah, Jenny Cream Ale every once in a while.
I lived in Rochester, New York, for a lot of years, and obviously Genesee, the brewery's there. So I used to drink a little bit of Jenny Cream Ale while I was there, and felt like I was supporting the local at the time too. So what else would you want people to know about Akronym?
Just that, with the whole thing with the COVID-19 going down, it gave us an opportunity to slow down and refocus. We now have food, we now have liquor, we now have wine. We are a more well-rounded a location for people to come. We have a nice patio. We're doing live music every Friday. I don't know if you can hear the guy in the background right now, but he's jamming out on our patio. So, we just came out of the pandemic, and we're just trying to be a staple and, support the other local breweries around us as we team up together and bring more people into the downtown Akron area and get them from Montrose, get them from Cleveland down here to try our beer here in downtown.
Tom, did you want to, timing wise?
I have to learn how to unmute myself here. We have a question from one of the attendees, and why is it called a Pilsner?
So Pilsner is the city that the beer came from, and that's why that name stuck with it. And a lot of beers get their names from where they're made. So like a Dortmunder is made in Dortmunder, Pilsner's made Pilsner. So that's where it got its name.
Awesome. Well, if others have other questions, make sure you put them in the Q&A or in the chat. We did have a technical problem of getting the YouTube going, so we'll put this up to YouTube later on. But let me try the transition to the next brewer and see how that goes. Oh, are we going to talk about what this beer tastes like, Rick? Do you got a couple of comments about that?
I mean, I was hoping like Joey or some of the brewers would describe it, but I mean, he kind of described it at the beginning, that it's just something lighter. I mean, in a lot of ways for me, the Pilsners are kind of nondescript when it comes to the flavor.
Yeah, it's just tastes like beer. Joey, did you have any comments about that?
No, it's just a pretty traditional style, nice and clean. A little bit of crackery malt, some nice floral aroma up front that you're getting from those Saaz hops, and has a little bit of more of aggressive nose than the actual flavor that's going to come through with the hops. So the nose is a little bit more floral than the flavor, but yeah, just a nice easy drinker and a little bit of crackery malts coming through at the end. Nice, good mouthfeel. Should have a nice crispy head on it when you pour it, and make sure you pour yourself a good, decent head on that guy.
Great. So as everybody takes a taste or continues their tasting, we'll play this little video here.
Appreciative of Akron Promise because they're really nice people. They care for for you. They get you out of tough situations when you got nobody else to talk to, and they helped me with my books when I was stressing about them and how I was going to pay for them. Couldn't thank you guys enough. Anybody in the future, they're really great people.
Hi, my name is Leah Stanovich, and I appreciate Akron Promise because when I needed it the most during my senior year, they provided me with a wonderful tutor for the ACT. And because of her, I was able to get a score high enough on the ACT to go to the University of Akron on a full ride scholarship.
Hello, my name is Alexis Miller, and I am very appreciative. And I appreciate Tom Gunner himself because of the fact that he did not also help me with my college problems. He helped me with my personal issues also. I'm very appreciative of this man. Thank you.
Okay, well, that was hearing from a few of our students. So next up is going to be Chris with 83 Brewery to talk a little bit about his beer. And take it away, Chris.
Hello, everybody. Clearly, I'm not in Akron right now. I'm actually in Florida, visiting some in-laws, hence my flamingo cup. The beer that we have is our Cucumber in Paradise. It is a Goza, which is a sour beer that has cucumber, lime peel, sea salt, and coriander in it. I don't know if anybody is trying it right now because we have tons of beer to drink. But it is, well, first off, sour. And the inspiration for this was actually a cucumber margarita that I had a long time ago. And since margaritas come with a rim of salt and sea salt is a classic ingredient in a Goza, I figured the cucumber would play very nicely in that beer style.
So why don't you describe what folks are supposed to be tasting in this beer?
Well, up front, you should get a little bit of cucumber taste. You should get that in the aroma as well. I get a little bit of cucumber, sea salt, and a little bit of floral, like a floral notes in the aroma of it. Do you get that too, Rick?
Yeah, I'm drinking along. Yes, I'm
Okay.
getting the same thing, and
So, yeah, I always.
Again, cucumber is such a subtle flavor.
Mm-hmm.
How do you have it be pronounced so much in the beer?
We did a few trials before we scaled up with the quantity in this beer. I mean, I was nervous about it. You don't want to undershoot it or overshoot it. If it's not there and you call it a cucumber beer, people are going to say that there's no cucumber, so why are you calling it that? And if it's way too much cucumber, the taste will not be appealing. So we did some samples on a small scale and figured out a ratio of the cucumber to the beer and dumped it in the tank, and thankfully it worked. And
again, so when you're getting that cucumber flavor, are you just throwing cucumbers into the brew in the mash? Well, how do you do that? Is there a...
We added so it's actually a cucumber concentrate.
Okay.
That I found. It was pasteurized concentrate. I didn't want to have to worry about anything, I guess, any kind of unfriendly bacteria being added to the beer because we added it right to the fermenter shortly after fermentation began. So we ended up throwing in, it was 10 gallons of cucumber concentrate. I don't know how many cucumbers it took to get that, but the sugar content was relatively high in the buckets that we received. So they used a lot of cucumbers in that. So that's how we got the flavor into that beer. We also added lime peel during the boil process, which gives it a nice citrus note to the beer and helps kind of round out that cucumber. And the idea was, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, in general, gozas are supposed to be low alcohol.
Yes, low alcohol. I think this is what,
4%?
Yeah, 4%. I mean, it's a light summer refreshing beer, so you don't want anything strong. Style guidelines wise, gozas they're low in alcohol. That's what you want. That's what people look for in that style.
And somebody was asking too, they had a question on, like, how do you get the souring aspect in your goza?
This one was actually soured with a unique yeast strain that sours first and then ferments. Traditionally, we use lactobacillus bacteria first for the souring process. Let it get to the pH level that you want, and then we would transfer that beer back to the boil kettle to kill it, and then boil it, add your hops, take it back to the fermenter, and put your yeast into it. But this one I learned about from a friend of mine, and it's a relatively new yeast strain that has souring properties first, and then it ferments. So it's a pretty unique style, and it's actually like a historical style, also from Germany, similar to the Pilsner we talked about first, which is kind of interesting. You know, that's got history to it. This beer is a historical ale that made some comebacks. So the history and stories of beer is pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Are you a fan of sours, the Goza style? I know you got Berliner Weisses on, and
yeah, I'm a big fan of sour beers. There's quite a wide range within sours of tartness levels, like intricate, I guess, acidic taste properties that different bacteria get into the beers. Like some are more complex sours and some are less complex. Like so once you get into like the nuances and details of the sours, it's a really wide range and fun style to try and sample, to learn more about.
so if somebody wants to get into sours, what would you recommend first? I mean, there are some just like really pucker bombs out there. If somebody wanted to introduce themselves and not go overboard like that with the sour, what would you recommend?
I mean, the fruited sours are definitely good starting points. They'll be less tart and more, I would say, approachable, not as a negative term, but just more friendly to your palate in general. People are familiar with tartness. I always say like orange juice or lemonade. It's a tart drink, but you're familiar with it. So if you can equate the level of tartness or acidity to something that people are familiar with, that kind of helps, I found, in trying to describe it to customers who aren't familiar with sour beers. But there's a lot of fruited sour beers now available commercially in 6-packs and 4-packs. And then the more how'd you describe that, Rick? What'd you say? The like palate busters, or like the really tart ones?
The pucker bombs?
Yeah, those ones. Like those could be like your Flemish red ales.
Right.
That can be like really overpowering sour. But I would say the fruited sours, like the Gozas and Berliner Weisses, are a good way to start into sours.
And to transition for a second, I know you're not sitting in your brewery.
Right.
Your brewery's in a really cool location, great old building with some history. Why don't you tell people kind of where you're located?
Yeah, we're actually inside of Goodyear's old headquarters, right outside of downtown Akron. We opened the end of August last year, so we're still, relatively new at this point. We got shut down after our 6-month mark. So basically we're a brand new brewery, kind of starting from scratch again as far as opening again. But yeah, the old Goodyear building, it has the original floors. We share that building with a barber shop, a restaurant, and they have the original gym they used for the Goodyear basketball team before the NBA was formed. So it's pretty cool to be in that building with all the history behind it.
Oh yeah, the Wingfoots.
Mm-hmm.
And they still do sporting events in there, right? And
Yeah,
concerts.
mostly for like school grade events, like volleyball, gymnastics, taekwondo, that kind of thing.
So I didn't see if we got all the questions answered. Hey, we got someone saying sours are the best. Love this one. Thank you, Joan,
Oh, thank you.
interacting with us. So Chris, have you found a decent beer on that tropical island that you're at there?
We actually went around to pick up some beer today from some local breweries. And while we were driving there, we got a text that they had shut down all the bars again here in Florida where we're at. Or I think it's statewide actually, unless they serve mostly food. So we got some crawlers of some stuff from some local places. I haven't tried it all yet, but we hit up Angry Chair, Cigar City, Descent, and Cycle Brew. So we're in St. Petersburg right now. We're staying safe. We're in masks, staying away from large crowds, and we're at my in-laws. So, but yeah, it's definitely interesting out there.
Great.
It's a great beer scene out here. We had this trip planned a long time ago. But the beer scene in Tampa and St. Petersburg it's one of the best spots right now. I think.
Well, thanks a lot.
There's
Chris.
always
Appreciate
Yeah,
that.
you're
We're going to do a little video here, and we're going to hear from some of the Akron Promise board members.
Appreciative of Akron Promise because
Wrong one.
they're really nice people. Appreciative of Akron Promise because
Hi, I'm Stephanie Sutton, Vice President for Enrollment Management at Stark State College and also a member of the Akron Promise Board. I'm passionate about student success, which is why I joined the board and believe that education is truly the great equalizer. I am proud to be part of the board and the work that we're doing in Akron Public Schools, not only helping students graduate high school, but also find that way to college and the career of their choice. Thank you for supporting us in our fundraiser.
I'm attorney Milan Morris, and I am a proud member of the Akron Promise Board. One of the main reasons why I joined this board is because they support students who have a similar background as myself. I know that if I would have been able to participate in an organization like Akron Promise as a high school student, going to college, I definitely would have benefited from this program greatly. Akron Promise is a great organization, and I am very proud to be a part of it.
Well, that was great hearing from them. We're always looking for good leadership with Akron Promise. And so if that interests you, please get in touch. But next is Killer Fog. I'm dying to know about Killer Fog. And Lock 15 Breweries. So here we go, Killer Fog.
Yeah, hey, cheers. Yeah, so our Killer Fog, it's a New England IPA. It's a style that's become really, really popular in the past few years. Basically, almost doing the opposite of how IPAs were maybe 5 or 6 years ago, where they were trying to make them as bitter as possible, 100 IBU, really strong, intense hop flavors. The New England IPA, you're using wheat and oats in ours to give it more of a smooth body. And for our New England, we don't even boil hops in it. And I'll speak more to the beer process, brewing process, but when you're boiling your beer, generally you add hops at the start and hops towards the end. The longer hops are boiled, the more bitterness you get out of them. So we just flash drop a bunch of hops in this right after it's done boiling and do a pretty hefty dry hop addition, which gives us a very low IBU, not very bitter, but very, very floral hoppy IPA. This was going to be a seasonal for us, and as soon as we tapped it, it started flying. So we've just kept it year round. It's been probably our best selling beer since we tapped it March last year. Yeah.
Why do you think the hazies are so popular?
I think it's just very approachable. It's got all the desirable hop flavors that you want. When you talk about the flavors that hops can impart in beer, citrus and maybe some fruity flavors. People seem to like that, and I think IPAs used to scare some people away because they were so bitter. People, you even get like a hop dry mouth from some of these 100 IBU double IPAs that are super strong and super bitter. When I'm out doing sales, even if somebody tells me I don't like IPAs, I'm like, well, just, maybe try this. This is not your typical IPA. It's a softer IPA. It's very approachable, very, very pleasing to the palate.
And I know that there's a wide range in the hazies too, where you could go from everything from, pineapple to citrus. Are you making multiple hazies there?
We did just start a second one. The Killer Fog is not fruited at all, and we've started a second one called the Ohio Erie Mist. That's more of an experimental fruited hazy IPA series for us. So the first 2 runs of it, we had guava puree added.
Okay.
Just tapped one this past week that has soursop and passion fruit in it. And then we're going to have a pineapple tangerine coming out as well. So that's, now we're running 2.
And I mean, one of the things that I love about the can is, I don't know if people can see that, the artwork on there. Maybe it's better if you hold it up. I think it was clear.
How's that?
Exactly. Like, talk about who's doing that artwork. That's a famous.
Yeah, Chuck Ayers. He's been doing our art from day one. You may be familiar with him through the Crankshaft comic strip, and he was a collaborator with Tom Baddick on Funky Winkerbean as well. He's an Akron native, KSU grad, and he's just got a connection to our owner. Our owner and his daughter grew up together, and his daughter works with us as well. And so, we wanted to do a historic theme with our beers. All of our labels have a local historic tie-in in some form. And Colin approached Chuck about this, and Chuck was just ecstatic about doing it. And I think he's done a phenomenal job with all of our labels. Like everyone really illustrates what we're looking for. It's been a very nice asset having Chuck to draw that up. Sometimes we'll come up with a beer name, while we're sitting around in the brew house, we have an idea and we'll text Chuck, and there's been 1 or 2 times where within an hour he's got a rough sketch for us. Yeah.
As somebody who grew up reading comic strips and loving cartoons, I think it's fantastic, and particularly his. I love seeing the labels and the artwork that he provided within your brewery as well.
Yeah, he's definitely got a unique style. I've had a few people mention that, it seems familiar who's doing the artwork, and once I mentioned Crankshaft, it just clicks for them.
Right. Well, share with folks a little bit about your brewery. Your, I guess I'd describe you more as a restaurant than like a bar.
Yeah, definitely.
So why don't you tell people about, your location and your place?
Yeah, we're at North and Howard Street, just north of downtown. We opened up August 2018. I think it's been right about 2 years since we started brewing. So we started brewing June 2018, getting ready for that. We've got a full-scale restaurant, which is it's a pretty nice asset, having that nice patio as well, full bar. So we get, and our chef is phenomenal too. He's changing that menu every couple months, doing really creative, delicious dishes. And I think we're able to get both sides of that. We get the food crowd, people who come in and they want a good dinner, maybe a nice glass of wine or a glass of bourbon or something. And we get the beer crowd as well. And we're able to really play off each other that way.
Somebody shot in a question about asking if you could talk a little bit about dry hopping.
Oh, sure. Yeah, dry hopping is simply adding hops either during fermentation or post-fermentation. So with the killer fog, once it's in that fermenter and the yeast is in there, I'll add hops about 2 days into the fermentation process. And then I also have a filter, inline filter. So when I move it over to the bright tank, which is where we'll carbonate the beer, we're doing a circulation through this filter as well with additional hops. And that way you're just getting all the oils that give you the citrus, the pear, the melon characters, whatever you're looking for, but no, not really any bitterness from them.
And when you were talking about your location and everything, there's a reason you're named Lock 15.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. We're right on the Ohio Erie Canal at Lock 15. Yeah, from our parking lot, there's a little bridge that passes right over the canal and then goes to the Ohio Erie towpath, which is nice.
Yeah, you're like a short walk. Whenever I'm there, I like walking over and just like watching the water flow through there.
Yeah, the Mustel store is right by us too. It's got that, again, going with the historic aspect of our labeling. We're in an old tire factory right there on the lock. We've got the Mustel store, the towpath. There's a lot of history just tied in with that site alone. So, we try to carry that aspect forward with everything.
Well, thank you very much, Kyle and Rick. Now we can play a little drinking game here and find out if Tom is able to play the right slide. I'll take a sip either way, actually.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Sutton.
Hello, everyone. I'm hoping that you're enjoying your time tonight. This infographic tells a lot about what we do at Akron Promise. We develop relationship students with the students via the student success team, via ACT score support, and in our scholarship program. Our scholarship program only provides about 5% of the dollars that these students use to go to college. And they work for some, they pay some out of their savings, they get federal financial aid, Stark State Foundation contributes. But the real key to their success right now in college is the relationship we've developed with the students. We meet with them at least on a monthly basis, talking about all the types of issues everything that they are going through trying to get this learning done so that they can have a better quality life at the end. So enjoy your time tonight. Glad you're here. You know, I just noticed this has 597 likes on it. That's actually our followers. Our likes are a little bit below that. So after you leave here tonight, if you can share, maybe like our page too. And meanwhile, we'll get back to having some of the beer talk. Yeah, I want to thank Greg Milo for putting that together for us. My quarantine hair, I hate looking at it, but it's been a fun adventure for me so far. So we're on to our last beer tonight. So who do we have for Missing Falls tonight? Is that Mark that we have tonight? And let's go.
Well, what do you want to know about Mango Rehab?
Well, I figured you would start talking about it.
Oh, yeah. All right. So Mango Rehab, that was primarily was in homebrew. It was one of the first beers I started with. It really started out as a West Coast IPA, and it started out nothing like it is today. It's had about 27 different revisions over the years working on it. I ended up starting out trying to go hop forward, and then realized when I was using some Australian hops, I was pulling some nice, mango, papaya, and stone fruits out of it. So I went with that, and it was really a tropical IPA for a few years as a home brewer. And then I started working with some pepper beers, and I wanted to make a beer with habanero in it to where the heat was hidden. So it's where you get the full habanero pepper taste, but the heat is not there. The heat dissipates on the back end. You don't get it in the front. You don't get it in the middle. But it just mysteriously appears when it's in your belly there for a few seconds, and then it dissipates. And that was a process I had to figure out using real habaneros and how to separate the capsaicin oil from the pepper itself to where I could use the pepper in the brewing process and add the hot oil later on at a lower dosage just to create the delayed effect of heat and still keep the integrity of the aroma of the mango and the head notes of a tropical, and just have a real crazy IPA going on.
So when I put my nose in this glass,
Yeah.
the very first time I got mango.
Yes.
And then I don't know if anyone else, I'm sure you guys know this trick of how to reset your nose when you're smelling beer. You just put your nose in your crook of your arm there and take a big whiff, and then that resets your senses. Then I get pepper.
Yeah.
Do most people get mango or pepper when they're smelling this beer?
Most people get mango right off the hit and right off the first sip. But if you take rapid sips, that habanero, due to the minute amount of capsaicin in there, is going to stay on your esophagus. So if you sip it rapidly at a fast pace, it'll continually get hotter for you. But if you have a sip here, a sip there, a drink here, a drink there, it'll stay at the same temperature all the time. And that's due to the minute amounts of capsaicin oil in there that will adhere to your esophagus and give you that taste of the hot pepper, but not at the strength of a habanero. I wanted to make a beer that had the roastiness and the flavor of a pepper, but not with the huge heat signature that you see in some pepper beers that are, almost pretty much hot sauce when you drink.
Right. And how popular is this beer for you?
This is one of our most popular beers here. This is, I was going to do it as a seasonal and just bring it out in the summer, but due to its popularity, we've kept it on draft continuously for over a year and a half now, and we've ran out of it quite a bit each time, and we've got to constantly keep it on the brewing schedule to keep it up to date and keep it interesting for people.
And again, how are you getting the mango and pepper in it?
All right, the mango is an all-natural concentrate that we use in there. The actual habanero is real habaneros that we purchase throughout the year. I have to slice them, dice them, extract the seeds. They go into an emulsifier, and then from there it's kind of a process I use that separates the oil from the pepper, and we extract the oil off the pepper. So then once we have just pepper concentrate, we'll use that in the brewing process and the fermentation process. And it's after we cold crash and right before the bright tank, do I add any of the capsaicin back in to bring the heat signature up, which gives that delayed effect to where you'll taste the pepper but not the heat until after you swallow, and then you get a little flare up of heat in the back end.
All right, and I asked everybody else this, and I know the backstory of this, that your name Missing Falls, and I know that the location that you're in, that kind of historic Goodrich building downtown, wasn't the original location. So kind of talk of how you ended up with Missing Falls. And,
when I was a home brewer and I had dreams of opening a brewery, I needed a business name for my brewery. I originally wanted to call the brewery Small City Brewing Company because I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, but I moved to Monroe Falls, Ohio, which is a town of 5,000 people. I mean, it's not in the middle of the country, but we're kind of trapped in between two larger cities that overshadow us. So I thought it was pretty cool that we were a small city amongst two big cities, and I loved that name, but I didn't want no one else to steal the name. So when I applied for a business permit in Monroe Falls, Ohio, I had to give a name of a business. And I'd lived there a few years, and they had taken the waterfall, they removed the dam for the waterfall in Monroe Falls. So the waterfall was gone. And the first location I was looking at was a small little location that was right next door to the waterfall. So I thought it'd be a really kind of a little jab at the city, maybe some extra publicity by doing this and getting the attention out there by calling it Missing Falls, because the falls were gone. So I had to go in front of city council and explain this whole story in front of them. And I thought the 12 members of the board were just going to be really upset with me. And it turns out they were just smiling. They thought it was the best thing ever, and they really, really loved the name. But probably like the rest of the guys here, when you open up a brewery, there's a lot of unknowns. And one of the unknowns was, how big of a space do I need, and what infrastructure do I need for the space to house the brewery? But I jumped the gun and rented the spot next to the river just to find out that it would be almost impossible to get the power and the sewage and drainage and everything else I needed to run a brewery out of there. So we opted to keep looking around, and the city was disappointed that we weren't going to open there. But in a small town that I live in, there's only so many buildings available. And we exhausted every issue and looked everywhere. But it was downtown Akron that really attracted us, and we looked at the old B.F. Goodrich Centers, which was the first tire company in Ohio to form. So the building we're currently in is about 111 years old, and it was just a really cool looking old factory style, turn of the century building where America was built over the years, where rubber was invented, where they made products for World War II, not having to do with tires here, but to keep America moving forward. And it's just a monumental part. And we'll get customers that come in their 80s that will tell me stories about what this spot I'm in was to them when they worked here years ago. So it's a really interesting place. It's very cool, and it's part of the heritage, just like 83 Brewing and Block 15. It's part of the heritage of what Akron used to be, what it was and what it's becoming now.
and I may be, maybe I'm just not remembering a place. You might be one of the only breweries, if not the only brewery in Ohio, that has two breweries within the same building.
Yeah, we were a good friend of ours, Ronald Shea, our Shea Brewing. They had a Merriman Valley location, and Ron was sort of the onset of tipping us off a little bit about this building, and we found it to be beneficial for the both of us. If you got multiple breweries in one location with a really massive parking lot that's really enticing to people to come and be able to set their car in one spot and then, you know, enjoy the day inside one building and go from brewery to brewery. So it's helped us, it's helped Ron. We're just great friends, and I think it was a perfect match. And the building, right now there's a third brewery that's in the plans and constructing. They're going to start as a winery first, but then they're going to expand. So we're hoping to get a few more in this building and kind of make it, you know, kind of a one-stop and shop place where you can park your car and visit a few breweries just in one location.
Right. And I noticed somebody sent a question in of how do different hops around the globe taste differently?
Well, in this beer, Mango Rehab, I primarily use Galaxy hops, which are coming out of Australia. So they've got a prominent passion fruit, mango, stone fruit overtone to them. So when I was designing this beer, I wanted a more of a fruity West Coast style of beer, and I never thought of putting habanero into it until, you know, I kind of got hooked on BW3's mango habanero wings. So I was already in the process of making a mango IPA, and I was like, well, this is interesting. Why don't I try a heat signature in the beer with it? So we went with that. But yeah, it depends on area, where they're grown, soil, sunlight. You're going to get different nuances out of the hops, you know, different growing temperatures. And they're all going to do a little something different to the beer.
Well, that was fantastic. We'd like to open up for more questions. If anybody has questions for any of the brewers or for Rick or for me, type them into the chat. We're happy to answer your questions as much as we can.
Well, as those are coming in, let me throw out like a really tough one to all the brewers on here. And obviously this is a you know, Akron event, and we got a lot of breweries around Akron, Canton, Cleveland area. If you could recommend one brewery for folks to go to, not your own, don't recommend your own, but somebody else's brewery, what brewery would you recommend that you know, fans have to visit in this area, and why? And I know that's putting you on the spot.
If I had to, I mean, the obvious answer would be some of the big guys like your Thirsty Dogs, your Hoppin' Frogs, your Fatheads. But I'd say keep it Akron local. I think you can go up and down Main Street right here, and you can hit all of us that are talking to you tonight. We're all offering really quality beers. I've been to every one of these breweries here, and I've really enjoyed everything they have to offer. Whether it's the beers, the food, the ambient atmosphere, how they handled the whole COVID shutdown, how they adapted and expanded patios and threw up tents and made it comfortable for everybody to come. So I would say pretty much anything in downtown Akron proper, you can't go wrong.
So Mark, I have an add-on question that I'd like everybody to answer too. Is do you have a favorite? This comes from one of our attendees. Do you have a favorite beer that's not your own?
If I was on an island and I could only have one beer, and it would be a fist fight between Brewdog's Elvis Juice and Fathead's Headhunter. But I think Headhunter's going to win every day of the week for me. There's just something about that beer that I can't stop buying it. I mean, I probably funded a third of that new brewery they built.
I have to say Bodie, Columbus Bodie. That is my favorite IPA for sure.
I'm gonna go to Strongsville for Brew Kettle's El Lupulo Libre. That's one of my all-time favorite IPAs, and it's a red IPA. And usually I don't like red ales, but there's just something about that beer with the combination of malt and hops that's just fantastic. And it's very hard to find. It's a seasonal beer, I believe, but when it's out, you got to get it.
Joey, do you got something?
Joey got on mute.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, all those answers are, you know, I mean, how can you go against any one of those beers? For me, it's really tough. I would probably have to say, you know, Fathead's the brewery that I want to go to, just because they've got a lot of different styles, and I feel like they hammer everything home just with quality and care. And they've kind of set the standards for us all here in Northeast Ohio. And I also really like Jackie O's Mystic Mama is one of my favorites too.
So I had a couple other questions that came in. One relates to, we have a lot of breweries in the area. Is there a saturation point? Do we have too many? Will we have too many?
I mean, I'd be happy to jump in just because I've been answering this question for years at this point. And I keep saying, yes, we're at a saturation point, and no, we're not. If you're a brewery that's trying to distribute your beer to like bars and restaurants and to the grocery store, we're definitely at a saturation point. There's only so much space in the grocery store shelves. There's only so many tap handles at the bars and restaurants, and it's very competitive. So if your beer goes on, somebody else's beer comes off. And at the same time, we aren't, because there are so many at this point local and neighborhood breweries. I still think there's a lot of room for neighborhood growth. I mean, look at the number of restaurants, look at the number of bars. There is room for even more, you know, breweries when it comes to, if they're going to own, you know, their little community or their neighborhood or their territory, there's still a lot of room for growth there. But it is getting unbelievably competitive on the store shelves and out with the tap handles.
Rick, I totally agree with you with the store shelves and everything, but I also agree with you with the town breweries. It's kind of like pizza shops. Can
Right.
you have pizza shops? Probably not, because they're all making great pies.
Right.
The bigger ones, they may lose a little something. The smaller ones, you may get something unique from them that nobody else has. You just got to find your favorite and try everybody, and you know that's what makes it great.
Right.
Every neighborhood has its corner bar, and now, you know, more and more neighborhoods that just have their corner brewery as well.
Well
So
said.
is there a 2020 beer booklet of some sort?
Well, hold on one second.
Mine aren't near me.
Oh. So I'm going to put in the chat here, folks, the infographic that came out of my video and a survey. I'd love to have survey results from you guys about what you felt about this event, what beers you like. I'm actually going to put up a poll that I think we can have the poll up here while Rick is talking. All right, so Rick, tell me about the beer booklet.
Yeah, I'm assuming the person meant the Summit Brew Path.
Yes.
Which is out and available now, because I already have a couple stamps on it. So if that's what you were referring to, yes, it is out there and available.
Excellent, excellent. So I have the survey that I'm putting in the chat now, and request to subscribe to our newsletter. We don't spam too many on the newsletter, but that's how you hear about events like these. This was really a fun event for us to put together. We're still ready for more questions. Oh, here's one. I like this one. While this survey is going on, do any of you guys have teasers for upcoming beers that are in the works?
All right. Well, we just finished our last of our lot. We make a beer every June that uses about 100 pounds of Fruity Pebbles in it, called Saturday Morning Cartoons. And we only make it once a year. It's difficult to make, and it's a milkshake New England IPA that's soaked down about 100 pounds of real Fruity Pebbles. So for our 1-year anniversary or 2-year anniversary, my bad, November 24th, we might be doing something, but we're not going to do it with Fruity Pebbles this time. So stay tuned.
Frosted Flakes.
No.
Chris, do you have something?
We have our barrel aged Christmas ale coming out next month. We don't have an exact release date yet, but it was in a bourbon barrel for 7 months. They were bottled just over a week ago. So stay tuned for our Christmas ale release sometime in July.
How about you, Kyle? Any news?
Yeah, as I said earlier, we're playing around with those fruited hazies. So we have, in addition to the sour sop passion fruit one that we just tapped, we've got a tangerine pineapple one coming out. COVID kind of derailed our seasonal brewing schedule. A lot has been pushed back, but late July we'll be bringing back our Station 3 / Smokestack IPA. We do a smoked malt IPA, and then we split the batch in half and add a habanero tincture to half that. And so one half is just a smoky, citrusy IPA. The other half is a really spicy IPA.
Fantastic. Joey, you got anything coming out?
Yeah, we'll be putting out a collaboration we did with Loggerhead Brewing Company, a nice little IPA. We just brewed a Schwartz beer, the Black Hat, yesterday, so a couple of weeks out on that, and our Hefeweizen should be ready sometime next week. So we've got all our fermentators are full, everything's rocking and rolling. We're full blown right now, so we should be releasing some things, and then we've got our sour beer that's aged in Chardonnay barrels should be ready in the next couple of weeks to get some fruit pitched on it and re-released.
Well, that's great. So I got to tell you, these guys did fantastic. I hope you guys out in the attendee world enjoyed them as well. I learned a lot. I really appreciate that. I think we should do this again. Those Christmas beers sound good, those seasonal items. So get your surveys back. Let us know if you'd like us to do this again. And meanwhile, we have a little a drawing. We have a door prize, even though there were no doors. But Acme generously donated a gift card. And so I'm going to pull this out of here. And one of our attendees, Justin Ploss, will get the gift card. We'll get back in touch with him on that. So we did a great job here tonight. We met our goal for fundraising. The technology worked fairly well. Only one person messed up repeatedly getting the right slide to work. I'm hoping that we'll get our social media follows up to where we need them to be. The more followers we have, the more we can get the word out about how we can improve education and opportunity to our students here in Akron. The fundraiser goal was so that we can fully fund our scholarships. We awarded 12 scholarships last week, or this past week, to the students graduating from Kenmore-Garfield High School. It's about $1,200 per student. We pay for all their books and some tuition gaps. And I thank you all so much. I got to thank the 4 breweries: Akronym, 83, Lot 15, Missing Falls. Greg Milo put those videos together for us. Stark State Foundation and the Stark State College support us. They actually contribute heavily to our scholarship fund. I hope you guys got good value out of this tonight. 112 ounces of beer that probably most of us are going to taste over a couple of days. I thank you all for showing up, for your contribution. If you got good value, we need to fully fund more scholarships. In the infographic, we have that we had 72 applicants and we've awarded 25 scholarships. Well, I want to get that up to 72 or more. I want every student in Akron to have these opportunities. So thank you very much. Some of you know I like the July 4th holiday. And so I have my little celebration. So I love these popper things. So there we go.
Wahoo!
Thank you very much, everybody.
Salud!
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Drink up.